it sounds far-fetched to people who are not in the situation or who have not witnessed parental alienation. But the more I'm discovering is that everyone who is everyone has witnessed it. They just, for some reason, don't know maybe how to identify it. And Petra and I spoke about it the other day as well, where she does these talks, and when she mentions parental alienation, everyone looks confused. But when she explains scenarios, it's like 90% of people, oh yeah, no, I've got a friend going through that. Oh, I've been through that. Oh, my cousin. Everyone knows someone or has been directly affected by it.
First of all, I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here. Thank you, really. And um, so I do a lot of talk. I do go out there, and anytime that I go, I usually ask people. Usually start with a question and say, do you know what parental alienation is?
Right.
It's very common that you look around the room and everyone sort of has this blank stare and they're like, we don't know. But then when you go and describe what it is, and the next thing you know, everyone in the room's like, oh my God, that's what happened to me. That's what happened to my brother. That's what happened to my best friend. That's what happened to my neighbor. Everyone has.
Have you have you witnessed the same since you've now, I mean, you've been an activist for a while now?
Oh, I have. I had to go to help parents when it was supervised visits. I was their moderator. I am a moderator here in Canada. So I help parents do supervised visits. I read their court papers and I'll go through it and all that stuff. But yes, children are rejecting their parents right in front of me. They don't want to go, they don't want to see them, they don't want to spend any time with them. They badmouth the parent at the time. They pull tantrums. It's incredible what these children go through because they were taught that the other parent is going to harm them, that the parent is scary. So these children are coming with fear in their eyes to visit that parent. And and a lot of times too, you could see that when you go to a family reunion and the children are not there, and you have to wonder when they say, "Oh, my son didn't want to come or my daughter didn't want to come." Why don't they want to come? I mean, these are their cousins that they grew up with all their lives. Then you find out that they're sitting in their rooms at home because they're so depressed. They don't know how to behave anymore. They're scared, and they don't know what to say when they get to that group of family because are they going to say, "Oh, my dad or my mom is holding me hostage"? No, they won't say that. They won't go against the alienating parent because that's the only love that they think they're getting, but it's not love they're getting. They're being conditioned to become a little soldier basically for them. I worked for the military police and I was a first responder and I took 911 calls all the time and I heard so many incredible cries from some parents that the other parent is abusing their children and nothing was done. And had they been helping people to deal with this kind of situation years ago, their children wouldn't be alienated from them today. And no matter who you are, whether you're police, you're military, you're government, you're just everyday normal mom or dad working 9 to 5, you go through a divorce, your children are going to suffer. It's the children that go through the most devastating and emotional abuse that you can't imagine. And the courts play on this. They want the children to act out because the more we bring our spouses back to court, the more money these courts are making off these children. So the children are conditioned by court, they're conditioned by the alienators, they're conditioned by the police. They don't even feel safe near the police anymore because, I mean, who do you turn to? You're just going to be pushed away. Education is important today, and we need to start really educating police lawyers, judges, doctors, therapists, all in one group instead of all these segregated spots. You go in and teach the police one thing, but someone's teaching the therapist something else. If you
Yes.
taught them all the same time, they could understand. And we need to
And
get that out.
possibly, I mean, when they taught the same time and they taught with real case studies, stories of alienated parents and kids, they might identify that, hey, like, not only their clients or the people who they were supposed to serve and protect, but family members. The point I'm getting to is that this thing has been so watered down and normalized in society that it's not even identified by our so-called professionals. So I definitely agree with that approach. But what about educating the children?
Yes, children need to be educated right from the beginning at school because kids are being alienated at a very young age, 2, 3, 4. So by the time they're going to kindergarten, they could be more educated on seeing it in their peers. When they see their friends bullying and stuff, they could talk and let them know that they know what's going on and why they're being bullied. That sometimes these kids come to school with no lunches. They come to school with undressed. They come to school unwashed. That's a good sign to step in and say, hey, what's going on with you? How come you don't have food, you don't have proper clothes, your clothes are dirty? I mean, teachers need to be more aware of that as well. So when you have a 4 or 5 year old, they tell the truth. But as children get a little older, 8, 9, they start fabricating. And by the time they reach 12, 13, 14, their minds are so messed up that they start lying because they had to lie their way through from the time they were walking, when they've been alienated or they've been going through family abuse. It's a process that we all go through. I mean, not everybody's perfect, but you can tell the difference between an alienated child and a child that just there's too many kids in the family, so they're being a little bit neglected, but they're not really neglected.
Right.
I mean, I come from a family of 8, so I know how important it is for everybody to have parent time with that parent, but it's impossible.
Right.
So siblings look after each other. But when you got a child that's, 1 or 2, 3 kids in the family, they don't get the love from the older child or the younger child. The middle child will use the excuse that she's the middle child. So it's so difficult for kids to get what they want.
On that note of educating kids, as you've probably noticed already, I'm a very blunt person. I don't believe in putting on kid gloves, and yeah, I don't believe in sugarcoating the truth. So what do you think about the approach of just educating kids that they are being abused and they need to speak out?
Well, yes, I'm very blunt too. And that's how my children
Good.
were raised. Whenever they got abused by their father or anybody who got bullied at school, I stepped in. I'd say, you don't do that. How would you like it if someone picked on you? And coming from my experience as a first responder, I kind of made it sound like it's going to come back on you, and if you don't stop it today. And so the kids need to be educated in a way that they don't have to fear telling people their story. They need to be educated that they don't have to lie to tell their story. They need to be educated to tell the truth all the time. And that when they tell the truth will always be with them. But when they start lying about why the other parent was bad or whatever, it's going to come out at the end. And it's just important for us to to teach them right from very young age.
So, what programs do you guys even have there? Because, well, you're very active in creating awareness. Do you have programs that actually teaches children about this abuse?
Well, what we have a lot of support groups for kids. I do a lot of research and get reunification therapists. We do have Dr. Mark Roseman. He has a reunification center called the Toby Center in Florida, and they go there to reunify. We're working on more. I'm in my trial right now, and I'm really hoping to get reunification therapy as a standard now for all children that have been alienated, because what I'm dealing with is all about money, but money is not the issue for me. My issue is making sure that my adult children will get help so that one day when I have grandchildren, I could have a relationship with them. My kids are in their 30s and they have no really any kind of resources to help them. They're crying that they can't have a relationship. They're crying that they are unhealthy, the mental and emotional abuse. They're crying suicide. And I'm trying to get them help, but I can't because they have to have their own voice to get the help. And so, what I'm trying to do is get the court system to recognize that these children that they've damaged need help and they need assistance. So the only thing we have that's free for them is through our doctors, through social services, but they're so overloaded. Mental illness has taken a wide turn, especially now since COVID, and families are stripped to the point where there's nowhere to go for help. Doctors are backed up. I suffered a severe reaction to all this abuse in November during my trial, and I can't be a doctor till no till May. So imagine these young children that are seeking help and no one can get to help them. So they fall into the cracks and they move on and they push them out, they push them out, and they push them out.
And it's just a lonely life for alienated kids, eh? They're lonely in their mind, they're lonely in society. I mean, it's one thing now having centers and stuff like that to fix this problem, but let's not forget that this is a cause of all governments around the world. So naturally, they should be putting these things up for free, right? I don't know, is yours government funded or is it private? The reunification center you spoke.
That's private funded by Dr. Roseman in Florida, but we don't have reunification centers. What we have is just social services, and it's all government funded, so they're not putting out what we need. And there's a lot of parents, we all talk that, if we had money, we'd open one here in Canada just to put kids together again, because that's the important part. But our governments are holding back all the help that these kids need. They don't want the kids to get help. They don't want kids to be healthy. This is why there's a war on our children. Our children are being damaged for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years.
And why would you say that they being damaged intentionally by the government is what I'm hearing. What's the plan? What's the plot as far as you can see?
Well, I believe that the plan is to make this world a hateful world, because the abuse between men and women, the narcissism is 50-50. They're so against each other now. There's a gender war out there. And the more the government preys on the kids, the more our generations are being damaged. We're getting more evil as our young children are getting adults, and their children are going to be just as worse. They don't want a loving world. They want everybody in conflict. And I can't understand why, but I see it. I see that during Hitler time, and they took all the children, there was over 244,000 children held, and by night 2000 and 2020, I believe it was, when I found the statistics, that there were only 700 of them accounted for. Where did those other children go? During the Chernobyl in 1986, that nuclear disaster destroyed 200,000 pregnant moms had to abort their babies. My daughter died with cancer in August 29, 1986. She couldn't be saved because of the contamination. So you imagine 200,000 children then. Now there's war going on in the Ukraine, and it's our young children going out there to fight. Is that a place for an 18-year-old to go?
I mean, their lives haven't even started yet. And
Exactly. They're
yeah.
still children. When I think about myself when I was 18, I was still a child.
Yeah.
And it's so insane what the burdens put onto these kids. And this is why they're conditioned to hate, so that they can leave their families so early to go out and be little warriors of some kind, shooting another 18-year-old.
If that's the case, and that's the government's plan and plot to keep the world in conflict, then I'd say that we've got not just evil but dumb government, because they're creating their own problems for the future, which they are still not solving. So the mass murders, I mean, you mentioned that there's a close relation to parental alienation and the mass shootings that go on in America, where, I mean, you guys have it commonly. Now, this may just be our opinion, but how many of these murder suicides that are happening way too often, by the way, do you think could be related to parental alienation or just child abuse in general? Leave a comment below. We'd like to know what you think. But it has been proven already and documented that parental alienation is child abuse, and I have spoken to adults who have been alienated as children. Let me tell you, the devastating effects on mental health are lifelong. Anxiety, PTSD, you name it, all the problems wrapped up in one from parental alienation. So I don't know how people can still think that it's not abuse. However, in the next episode over here, we speak about how the legal system is failing us and could possibly be the cause of all this violence due to their negligence and just lack of intervention. Check it out in the next episode.